We had stopped, I think on the way there, we had nothing to climb with. We stopped at a pawn shop and found a set of spurs, of all places, and had no harness. So I think I probably drank enough beer that I took my belt off. I know that's how I climbed the tree. I used my belt. And halfway up the tree, of course, I'm shaking, nervous wreck. Daryl's coaching me. He said, "You're doing good, you're doing good." And of course, I'm cussing him. I said, "You're not in this tree with a belt and a pawn shop set of spurs, you know."
So I don't know about you all, but my favorite stories in falconry are the ones that always have the most random, quirky, just off-the-wall kind of aspects to them. And I was really fortunate to be able to have a conversation with Clint Carpenter, who was our guest this week at the Kentucky Falconers Association picnic. After hearing a few of his stories, well, naturally I had to have him on as a guest and pass some of those along to you all as well. He definitely had some stories to share, especially with getting into imprinting red tails and things that you typically don't see done near as much these days. So it was really cool to be able to have this conversation with Clint, and I am happy to be able to pass it along to you all. So I give you all Clint Carpenter. Enjoy. All right, and 3, 2, 1. How's it going, Clint?
It's going good.
Good, man.
How are you?
Yes. No, I'm doing good. I mean, I wish my studio air conditioning was working currently, but you know, it's whatever. It's still a little tolerable. I'm sure it's probably not too much of an issue for you right now. Right?
We have a month.
A month indeed. So, you said you work for Nestle, right?
Work for Nestle.
Yeah, and you make Hot Pockets?
Make Hot Pockets. Yeah, we make Hot Pockets.
Those things, they never are just right, temperature-wise.
No.
They're either too cold or you're just, it's kind of like the Jim Gaffigan skits, with talking about how just, molten lava inside your mouth and, burning the heck out of your mouth.
Yep.
So, oh, that's cool, man. So how, I know you said you work like crazy hours and everything. What kind of hours did you say you work again?
Yeah, we work 12 and a half hour days. And then on top of that, I have an hour drive to work and back. So most of my day is shot when I do work.
I can relate to the hour drive. I drive to Vincennes, but I only do that like a few times a week to go to work. It's about an hour and 15-minute drive from me too, so I can relate to that a little bit. I'm not sure I'd want to do it more than a few times a week though.
Right. Yeah.
So something that not very many people tend to talk about enough, I think, is how in the world with working that many 12-hour shifts and stuff, how do you make your falconry work around?
Well, we never work any more than 3 days in a row. 2 days, and then we'll be off 2 days, work 3 days, and then off 2, so on and so forth. It changes through the week, each week. And basically, when it's early season, I try to get out as soon as I can when everybody else is sitting around. They don't want to get out in the heat.
Right.
They don't want to get the burrs and briars. But I'll take a bird to work, and we'll stick it somewhere where it's cool. We have trailers out back, and we'll stick them back there, and we actually hunt the industrial park where it's at. So if we have 30 minutes of daylight, we'll use it. Me and Kevin Rose, buddy of mine, he's in falconry. He works up there with me, so makes it, yeah.
Well, that's convenient.
Yeah, it is convenient. So you're not doing it alone.
Yeah.
But on my days off, I'm in the woods daylight to dark.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I wish I had a job. I work in healthcare, and I think they would frown on me bringing my bird into the hospital. Just sitting there with it on the glove while I'm watching people doing sleep studies at night. I don't really think they'd like that too much, unfortunately. So it's
yeah.
Although I have done the occasional quick kestrel on starling deal, on the way to work some nights when I haven't been able to fit it in before that and everything. And, by then it's cool enough that you can leave them in the car overnight and everything. Yep. So how big is that complex then where you work? I mean,
there's 750 people on the floor. It's a really big, it's a really big company.
Okay. And so it's probably got a pretty decent area to hunt around there too.
Yeah. Right? It's, a lot of older buildings. Some of them they don't use anymore, and Of course, it has on the back side of it, it has a subdivision, and in between it's undeveloped.
Okay.
So it's loaded with rabbits, being it's in the city limits.
Mm-hmm.
You keep the gun hunters out of there.
Right. Uh-huh.
And they seem to tolerate us, and we go. We keep a small group, and they don't even really know we're there.
Well, that's good. Yeah. I mean, it's I'm sure they probably wouldn't even know what you guys were doing anyway.
No.
So no, that's neat though. You just don't hear that very often. Bateman guys and stuff like that. They incorporate it into their job. So, but I mean, there's not very many people that have that kind of flexibility to be able to take their birds to work and do that, on off time and everything.
Right.
So that's cool. So how long have you been associated, or have you lived in Kentucky your whole life? Or
lived right where I live in Nicholas County, Kentucky, my whole life.
Okay.
Yep.
So you've pretty much been Kentucky your whole life, and you said you've been practicing falconry for what, 10 years, you said?
10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of get associated with, the Kentucky Falconer Association Club? And, I know you just got elected to be their president and stuff, and we kind of met briefly at the meet, a few weeks back or whatever. So how was that process for you?
Yeah, it's a little bit overwhelming, actually. It started out really gung-ho, and Tyler, I mean, he has done an unbelievable job. Tim has done an unbelievable job, Kirk. And, I'm a hunter. Mm-hmm. And I'm not used to the computer. I mean, they are whizzes at it. They have the programs, whatnot, what they use. I mean, I don't even know how to open up the email to the account. So they basically, Tyler has taken the reins and went with it. And, I'm there. And we have meetings. We've been pretty religious on it, and it showed at the meet. We almost doubled the people this year.
Yeah, it was a nice turnout from what I saw.
Really good attendance.
Yeah,
and a lot of support. And I don't know. I'm more along the lines of putting something together as far as the meet, the field meet, and I think people looked towards me as leading that and thought that I would be the best president. And I'll tell you, there's a lot more that goes into this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot, and these guys are showing me that. So yeah, as a group of us four in the committee, it's been a really good thing for Kentucky.
Well, how long has the club been established now?
I'm wanting to say they said the earliest they could find was back in the late 60s.
Okay.
And that's the earliest date they could find that the club has been there. And more or less it was just a bunch of guys that would get together, and the older fellas, and it wasn't as organized as what it is right now. Mm-hmm. A few years back, Daryl Lane, he's the chief of police there in town, and also he is a falconer and my sponsor. And we got together and we talked with Stuart Ray. And he was really wanting to push and get this going, get this organization off and running. And we just never could really come together. It wasn't until Hannah and Stuart came together, and they lived closer and they were more able to do this. Mm-hmm. And we had it wasn't even a picnic. It was just a meet to get it kicked off. And the very next year, we had a pretty good attendance of that. The very next year, we had our first picnic. Hannah put together a really great raffle for the very first one in a long time. Mm-hmm. And it grew the next year, and then this is the third year. Mm-hmm. So it really jumped this year.
Well, that's good though. That's what you want to see is that exponential, that growth. It means that word's getting out, and so our Indiana club is kind of the same way. We keep seeing more and more people come each year and stuff too, and even the smaller individual meets and stuff. I'm sure you guys have probably noticed the same thing, but there just keeps there's more and more and more like pre-apprentice aspiring, falconers that are people that want to be falconers, the number of those types of people just keeps growing at each meet. I think it's pretty interesting, and it kind of attests to the fact that even though this sport is technically what they've been considering for so many years, like a sport that's on the decline as far as numbers, but it seems like it's been kind of having a continual resurgence, at least an interest. Mm-hmm. So it kind of tells me that the word is still continuing to get out about it, whether it be through social media or just other avenues and stuff like that. But it's also amazing how many of those people, after talking to so many of the people at these picnics and meets and stuff, they are all kind of like really interested and gung ho about it, but then they start talking to more people, and then all of a sudden you never hear from them again.
Yep. That does happen.
Yeah. I mean, phone numbers are given out and stuff. You might get one or two phone calls and then radio silence from a lot of these people, which, I mean, like I said, we've anybody that remotely does any research on this finds out real fast that it could very well not be for them. So, and that I think that is kind of a good thing, obviously, because that way everybody, between the potential sponsors all the way to the birds themselves, they're not gonna have any injustices done as far as time or anything else for someone that's not willing to put forth the dedication to it. So you've basically you've been doing this for 10 years, and I'm assuming you started off with kind of the traditional like red tail type, or how maybe was that different for you, or
it was different. I would like to say that I started out watching a movie or reading a book, My Side of the Mountain, whatever, but it wasn't like that. No, I was a avid small game hunter. I raised German short hair pointers, and I had 200 acres and was a cattle farmer, and we would travel out west every year. And I also had beagles, and it happened to be that day me and actually the game warden, and that was before he was the game warden, we were hunting rabbit on an adjacent farm to mine, and the beagle was bringing the rabbit around the rim of just a small holler, and out of nowhere, a hawk just smashes it. That is what started my drive, and it sparked my interest. Of course, I was going to work, and as slow as the internet even was, I was punching buttons, and it kindly went away for a few years. And then one day I was driving home from work, and I saw this bird just fly across my car, and it was huge. It looked like a golden eagle to me. I didn't know any different, golden eagle or red tail. And I saw it go into Darrell Lane's yard. So of course I'm turning my steering wheel and I'm pulling in. I knew Darrell, known him for many years, but I had no idea he was in the falconry. And of course, as soon as I'm pulling in, I'm seeing this bird land on his glove. I got out. I said, "What can I do to do this?" And I mean, he basically picked me up that day. He was like, "You want to do it?" He knew me. He knew my drive for hunting and all that. And that is when I began to learn that they don't destroy small game. I was like, it's harder to catch anything with a damn. I want to take a shotgun with me, but it
would be a lot more efficient to kill small game with a gun, for sure.
It would. So I mean, if anything, that is what it has taught me.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's really cool that the people that start getting into this, it's just as much educational as it is anything else.
Yes.
And there's so much that goes into it, and there's just so many misconceptions and everything that are out there about it. So that it definitely is one of the most important things, and it's why for everybody that wants to get into it, they really need to find the best sponsor that they can find, someone that's going to really, to tell them those things, because if not, then you're going to get all this misinformation and all these different these misnomers or these other things that really don't need to be passed down from generation to generation that are being passed down.
Right.
And obviously that doesn't do anybody any good. So you get into this then, and you just are fascinated by seeing this. You start your apprenticeship. You go ahead and just did you start off with a red tail then and just do the traditional route that most people do?
Yep. Of course, Daryl had me build my own trap, and all this came together within a month. It was actually, I'm thinking November was about when I came into it, and actually we had a trip out west planned already. So I'm scrambling to get a bird. Got one the first day out, and her name was Generator. And yeah, she was a tough bird. She only killed one for me that year, but the experience I had with her, and my first year I started mid of the year, and the experience we had out west that year when we took the birds, it was just I knew then that was my thing, and that's every year is getting better. Daryl always said, he said, if you think that was awesome, just wait, it gets better. And it has.
It can also get worse too.
There's bad times. There's bad times, especially when you're dealing with accipiters.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. And so I'm assuming that you've had that same run of bad type luck that most falconers have usually, where they'll have, a few good years or whatever, and then they'll just have like a year or two where they just can't do anything right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how did that go for you?
Yeah, it's depressing. One year I got a bird and I was just bound and determined that I was going to get it to kill, and I went almost half the season with this bird, and the only thing it would take was mice.
Yeah.
There's nothing I could put in front of it. A lot of people I've heard, even Jeff Fincher say before, you can make any bird. But that bird, I couldn't even make it. Nothing I could do.
We've talked about it before. There's just some birds that are not good falconry candidate birds.
Yep.
And those birds, you have to make a decision a lot sooner, hopefully, rather than later, or else, like you just said, you've burnt half a season on a bird that's not going to give you any return on the amount of work that you put into it.
That's right.
And that's always a shame, but you just have to chalk it up to, you can call it a failure, you can call it a learning experience, you can call it whatever you want, but it still is what it is.
Right.
And ultimately, it's... the way I look into any type of experiences, even if I fail, I'm quick to own up to any mistake that I make, no matter how stupid it is. And Lord knows I've done a lot of stupid stuff, but it's always a good learning experience. And we've had many discussions amongst me and my other buddies and everything. I'm sure you've had similar discussions that as long as you just don't make the same mistake again,
right,
and make a habit of doing that, then it's just all part of it.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's a practice.
Yeah, for sure. So did you release your first bird then and get another one the following season? Then,
I did.
Okay.
I did. Yeah. That was one of my sponsors. He wanted that bird released and me to experience another bird, and my second bird was just, she dominated. And he didn't want me to get rid of that bird.
Right.
He's like, listen, you're never going to have another bird like this. There's not a guarantee you will anyway.
Yeah.
And the next year is the year that I went and didn't catch anything. I'm like, man, I wish I had that one back. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because you listen to some of these guys that have been in the sport for decades, and it's easy for someone to tell you when you've only been in the sport for a couple years or something, like, you don't really know what you got there.
Right.
And you don't really know how rare it is that what just happened, or what, that season that you had, or what that bird did for you. You don't really understand how, I guess exceptional would be a decent word, but like how rare, or how just not frequent that happens and stuff. Right. And you're like, okay, like, right. You're right. I don't know.
Yeah.
because I really have, it's like, I have no frame of reference, to basically compare it to. And, I kind of look forward. I mean, I hope I'm still physically able to keep doing this for another 30, 40 years, like a lot of these guys are and everything. But I hope that I can be that guy someday to look at some of these young guys, assuming, of course, that we haven't destroyed all of our hunting lands and mowed everything over by then. But it's starting to get disheartening, with how much spots and land that we're losing to development, unfortunately. But I've had kind of the similar experience and stuff too. I mean, I was spoiled by my first red tail because I had this really nice tiercel I named Vader, and because obviously you can see the Star Wars nerdery in here, whatever. But anyway, so Vader and I got like 34 rabbits, first season and everything, and I hunted him. I was having a blast with him. I had no idea I could have that much fun with a red tail, like because with Mark and a lot of the local guys are goshawk guys and stuff. So, and my sponsor Bill is primarily a Harris hawk guy. So, I saw these different types of birds and it's kind of. But I thought that the red tails, I mean, they were cool, but I don't know, it just wasn't kind of my forte, like right. I didn't, of course, I'm sitting here looking back now thinking it's not like you knew what forte you had, you friggin' dork, but I that first season, I was just like, man, I think I could really have a lot of fun with a red tail. Of course, I haven't had one since, but it's not saying I'm not going to try one again or have one again or whatever. It's still not really my number one, preferred style of hunting or whatever. But I think the next one I want to do the squirrel deal and stuff, especially after talking to Jeff. I just did a podcast with Jeff, Fincher and stuff this last week and everything. And some of the other squirrel guys that I know too, they swear by it. And, it seems like, that just might be a lot more fun the next time around than the traditional the cottontail way of doing stuff. So you did red tails your first 2 or 3 seasons and stuff. What you told me earlier that you've done a couple of imprints and everything, and one of the first things obviously that any aspiring person is told is like, well, I mean, you can do imprint red tails, but there's so many ways that you can potentially turn that into a disaster, obviously. And there's very few things that a lot of people say you can accomplish with an imprint that you couldn't just do with a fairly eventually sweet-natured passage bird.
Right.
So go into that a little bit. Why did you do the imprints?
So I got a really good story behind all and the reasoning of why I did the second imprint.
Please share.
So I was at home one morning, woke up to a phone call from a nurse that I went to school with in Frankfort, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. She was at the hospital and said, "Are you still messing with those birds?" I said, "Yeah, I'm still messing with those birds." And she said, "We have one down here on the helicopter pad." And she said, "It's really tame. We go down there at lunch every day and it just doesn't fly off or anything." She said, "We can walk right up to it. What do you think's wrong with it?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "Can it fly?" She said, "No, it doesn't fly." I was like, "Yeah, sure as crap. When I get, an hour and a half drive, I'm going to walk out to the helicopter pad. It's going to fly to a tree." And she convinced me to come. So I grab a dip net. Didn't have a rat, grab a trap. I grabbed my tackle box full of everything I had, and away I went. And I stopped at Petco, got a gerbil, had to sign my life away to get that thing, saying I was going to go home and it was going to be in a shrine or something. That's not what happened.
You're going to worship it nightly, and you'll treat it as your most loved and cherished family member ever. I got you. So I went to the helicopter pad, and sure enough, it was out there catching grasshoppers and good size hawk. And I hurried up, rushed, put the rat in the trap, and thought, well, I'm just going to do this easy way, and I'm going to take it out there, throw it. Surely enough, it'll walk over to it. Well, when it saw me coming towards it, it started coming towards me, hopping on the ground. I was like, well, isn't this odd? So
just kind of threw the trap to the side and walked up to the bird and put the dip net over it. And I was like, man, this is really weird. So picked it up, checked all over it, just didn't see any signs of it, any injury or anything. And so I took it to a picnic table, sat it down, and was going to slide it in a set of pantyhose. I always cut the end out, slide it through, put the hood on.
Okay.
And one of the helicopter pilots came out. He said, hey, what are you doing with our bird?
Hey everyone, I'll get back to Clint's story here in just a second, but I wanted to take a quick moment to make an announcement I think it's going to make a lot of you very happy. It's been requested for a while that we start offering the podcast on other platforms, including Apple Podcasts, and here real soon that is going to be a reality. So we're happy to be able to officially announce that, and it's going to take a little bit of time, but we'll officially announce whenever it's all ready to go. But we're doing this with out of our own pocket basically right now. We wanted to go ahead and bite the bullet and take the plunge and grow with you all. So we're happy to be able to do that. And I also want to take a moment to thank everyone for the donations that they've made recently, especially from around the world. It means a lot to us. So thank you again so much for that. It's much appreciated. Well, hopefully that announcement got a lot of you excited about things to come, and we're certainly excited about those things as well. So now that the announcement has been made, we'll go ahead and turn things back over to Clint and hear the rest of the story about the imprint red tail. Here we go.
And about them, Beth came down. She's the nurse. And she said, well, we called him to come and get it. And he said, well, we raised that from a baby. And he said that he showed me the nest, the helicopter taking off, blew the little chick out. I'm like, well, how long have you had this? And he said, I don't know. It was about the size of a golf ball when we got it. And
it lived?
I said, really? He said, yeah.
Wow.
He said, we were going to call somebody. He said, I believe they told me they called Raptor Rehab because it started attacking their vehicles when they would come pull into work in the morning. And I said, well, what did you feed this thing? He said, oh, we bring a little ball of hamburger for it every morning before we come in. I said, well, just a little ball? And he said, yeah, we'd roll it up about the size of a marble, give it a few of them. And I said, and you raised that from a chick? He said, yeah.
I can't believe it didn't die.
Yeah.
Off of just hamburger?
There's no wonder it's out catching grasshoppers. So I said, well, where did you raise it at? And he said, well, we just threw it in that flower pot right there. Out in all the wind and rain, there was a concrete flower pot that looked like they maybe used for cigarette butts, had sand in the bottom. And he said, yeah, we would just toss a hamburger in there and it would eat it. And so I convinced him. I told him who I was with falconry and whatnot. And he said, okay. He said, it's probably in a better place with you. So I took her home. And of course, here comes the gerbil. I was like, she is hungry. She was really hungry. Mm-hmm. And she saw me pull the gerbil out and was just baiting straight toward me. I'd already put a set of temporary anklets on her. Mm-hmm. And so I gave her the gerbil. And as far as I know, that was the only time that I ever fed her where she saw me at that point. And I took her and I put her in my mews. Mm-hmm. And I blocked the window that was facing my house where I would walk up. And I was feeding her through a tube. And I did that for 2 months. Mm-hmm. And
just let her get wild again.
Literally never laid eyes on her. Yeah. I would drop the food in there and I'd hear her hit it. And I knew that it was going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. A bird that it was associated with food, people, and a red-tailed hawk. I heard all the horror stories.
Yep.
She did scream at first when I put her in there. When her weight would start to drop, I would feed her live food through the bottom chute, and then I would drop through the top when I would drop just meat or whatever. And one day I was in the house and I had already started dropping her weight until I knew, because she would hit that wall hard. Mm-hmm. You knew when she was hungry. Mm-hmm. And I'd had her to the point she was hitting the wall pretty hard when I dropped the food in. So I said, well, I want to go out and get her out, and I'm going to jess her up and see what we can do. Mm-hmm. Had the glove, had a piece of meat on the glove, opened up the door, and she hit my glove and just stood there and ate the food right off of it. Mm-hmm. So I took her inside, jessed her up, anklets, all that good stuff, tied her out on a bow perch, and that afternoon I said, well, let's see if she'll fly to me. Mm-hmm. who cares if I lose her? I slipped out to Jess's, tossed her up in a tree, and from that minute on, she killed a rabbit within the next hour.
Jeez.
And the screaming had started, and then it stopped within the first week, and it wasn't really a scream. And after that, she was literally, you could handle all of her food. If she killed a rabbit, she would basically just step off the rabbit almost before she would kill it, or before you would get a chance to get your hands on it. And she wanted what you were trading off.
Yeah, she wanted a little chick or whatever it was you trained her with.
The best bird I've ever seen to trade off. She never offered to foot you. She never offered to bite. She knew what she was in the game for. It was food. And I would feed her off of a lure. I never fed her off of the glove.
Yeah.
Except for the first few times that I called her to it to see if she would come back. And after that, I was like, I've got to stop this.
Yeah.
So that was my first experience with the imprint red tail that I didn't get to imprint.
Right.
So that following year, Brian Olson took her to kill 56 pheasant in Pennsylvania. He took her there. I decided I'm going to do this again. I'm going to try it again following the fireman or the helicopter pilot's recipe. So I did exactly how they did, except for I fed the right amount, but I didn't wake up in the middle of the night. I fed it just as a parent would feed it. Really hard raining days, it didn't get to eat. Yeah, I treated it like a parent would. If it's raining that hard, they're not catching food, and I didn't feed it. If it went and it didn't eat on its own, I never fed it by hand. I would put the food down, put a cardboard between me and the food, and lift it up and walk away. And we're talking about a 3-day-old chick. You had to help it the first few days, and after it realized, it ate on its own. So from then on, it basically raised itself. It stayed outside after it was old enough to keep its body heat. Just built a platform out of the bottom of a igloo dog house. Put AstroTurf on it, and put it in an octagon dog pen with a shelter top on it, and it stayed outside. And I fed it, socialized with it without the food, with the dogs around, and it got to the point that it pretty much just stayed hacked in the yard all the time. Yeah. And that became Butters, and he took raccoons.
Butters.
He took a lot of stuff that I don't want to mention.
Yeah, well, that's the unfortunate. That's the unfortunate coincidence of an imprint. A lot of times. Yeah. As you know, I signaled down to you with the coyote head there.
Yep. The prize.
Yeah. I mean that's the result of imprint Harris Hawk shenanigans.
Wow.
So it's not always a good thing.
No.
Them being overly gamey and being too stupid or just not knowing any better, whatever, doesn't. It's always really cool when a bird half the size of the game it takes wins a battle. But most of the time, obviously, as you know, it's not worth the hassle.
Right. No.
It usually rarely ever works out the way that you want it to. So, yeah, I mean, that's crazy. So you said you've done multiple imprints though, right? Or was that those
are the only two?
Those are the only two. Okay.
And it was basically, the first one was by chance. The second one was to see if that recipe really did work. And everything worked to a T. He had the same exact, he acted just like her, except for he screamed, and still screams. And where I think that went wrong is I did not put him in the mew for 2 months to get him not associated with the human and food.
Right.
Even though I wasn't feeding him by hand, he still knew at that point I was feeding him.
Yeah. I was going to say, without that 2 months of the drop shoot action and just saying, okay, well, my food's not coming from that thing over there.
That's where I think that happened.
That makes total sense.
But the rest was, I would say that she was flawless. I mean, she was a flawless imprint. Well, he just had the screaming. That was it.
Yeah. No, I mean, and there's a lot of guys that are totally willing to accept a screaming bird if they produce results. So I mean, if screaming's not fun by any stretch. It's so annoying. But if you're getting results from a bird, hey,
Yep.
you know, I mean, it's just whatever you're willing to put up with, I guess. You know, but yeah, I mean, I know back in the day, imprints in a lot of states were all you were allowed to have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you weren't allowed to take passage birds for a long time and stuff like that. So I mean, I've heard lots of stories from a lot of the older guys that used to imprint them and stuff, and they had nothing but great things to say about some of the turnouts with some of those birds. But there's just so much room for error, and you know, you get a nice big 50 to 60 ounce female red tail and you're imprinting it, and you know, the thought of having a set of talons buried into your face,
right,
you know, from one of those birds is just horrifying.
Yeah.
But I've you know, like Joe and a couple other guys locally have told stories about how they, you know, would well, Joe told me a story once about how he was trying to help another guy with an imprint that it didn't go so well for him, and he went over to help the guy and stuff, and that bird's talons ended up in his orbital.
Wow.
And ended up like chipping part of the bone and next to his eye socket and stuff in the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's not something that's always that great to pursue. And you know, having done that though, and obviously done the passage birds and stuff as well, I mean, do you still think that it's worth the effort over just getting you a nice passage bird and not have to deal with all the drama? Or what's your final thoughts on that?
My final thoughts are you're stuck with that bird for a lifetime. He is out at hike, and he is still very much there because the screams are nonstop.
Yeah.
He doesn't come in anymore. He's catching, but I'm sure I'll see him this winter. Times will get tough. He'll come back. But you are stuck with that bird for a lifetime. And I don't want to be that way, because taught by my sponsor, he taught me to push the envelope. He taught me to push the birds as hard as I could and succeed in whatever you're trying to do. And we have had a ton of fun. We have flown cast Cooper Hawks on duck in
Cast Coopers, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, let's. I think this is the perfect segue into that. Let's talk about these Cooper's Hawk experience that you had then. We'll start off by talking. Well, you just mentioned the. Let's go ahead and just start talking about this Cast Cooper's Hawk experience. You don't hear that very often.
Yep, we pulled 2 coops. Tony Englert put us on a coop nest at Taylorsville State Park, and showed us where they were. We went just by a text telling us look for the deer trail going in the woods after you cross the bridge, and we found it and went in, and it was the first tree I ever climbed. And yeah, I was really nervous. I think
it's an interesting experience, isn't it?
Yeah, we had stopped. I think on the way there, we had nothing to climb with. We stopped at a pawn shop and found a set of spurs of all places.
Oh, jeez.
And had no harness, so I think I probably drank enough beer that I took my belt off. I know that's how I climbed the tree. I used my belt. And halfway up the tree, of course, I'm shaking, nervous wreck. Daryl's coaching me. He said, "You're doing good. You're doing good." And of course, I'm cussing him. I said, "You're not in this tree with a belt and a pawn shop set of spurs, you know." Here I am packing a cooler up there with a rope on it so I can lower these birds down. So I get to the top of the cedar tree, and I get right to the base of the nest, and I freak out. I lock up. I said, I can't go any higher. I mean, I feel this tree leaning back. And I look up through the bottom of the nest, through the sunlight shining through it, and I saw those little white chicks moving. That was it.
Last little surge.
That was it. I got the surge, and picked out our 2 birds, lowered them down. Lucky enough, they turned out to both be females, and turned out to be 2 of the most unbelievable hunters that I have seen across social media or anything. And that's not because there are birds. They were phenomenal. There was nothing that we didn't catch with them within reason.
Within reason.
Mine took squirrels, everything.
What about ducks?
Took ducks. We took lark, which, you know, you can't stop what they can do. Daryl's would actually just fly completely out of the country for a lark. And, of course, we were flying telemetry. And Yeah, mine got really good at crows. We took tons of crows with her, and that's a heck of a fight. Mm-hmm. One heck of a fight. And I believe, yeah, she took a mallard duck, one of the big lake ducks. Yeah, but literally we took everything that these birds could handle, mm-hmm. and we pushed them the whole summer. Continued on. His is still there, tame hiking. And Nala got killed by a dog. So it destroyed me. It destroyed me. I had finally got my first accipiter, and it was the best bird that I believe I had ever had, mm-hmm. and I lost her.
Yeah.
So that was one of those years.
Jeez. Well, I've had really poor luck with ISIS so far. I've tried, a couple of. The first, let's see, I think, what was it? Yeah, so I flew the red tail and the Harris and the kestrel, and then once I got my general, is that was the first bird that I tried. Also, was I actually climbed in my own nest and stuff too. I didn't do it the way you did it.
Right. Yeah.
I had a harness and everything and whatever the Mark let me use and everything, and that took me forever to climb that tree. And at the very top, where you had your little freak out episode, mm-hmm. mine was a little different. I wasn't freaking out, but when I was so dehydrated by the time I got to the top that when I reached my arm up to try and make that last little pull upwards, my whole forearm locked up and like literally like I couldn't unbend my wrist and everything. I was like, and so I'm like, okay, I've still got one good arm. Maybe I can. And so I reached that one up, same thing. So I'm sitting here like, I'm trying to like stretch him back out and everything. And I finally managed to get him stretched back out enough to where I could make that last little one. But unfortunately, that bird ended up dying on me within a couple days. The picture was sent to McDermott, and he concluded that it was probably a congenital heart defect or mm-hmm. something of it. Just what, because we pulled two birds also, and another buddy of mine got the other one, and comparing the growth rate, both of them, it just didn't look right. Right. I mean, you can just kind of tell. That's what he suspected. Well, I just had bad luck with, especially. I mean, and unfortunately, the only ISIS I've tried have been accipiter type ISIS. I've tried a sharp shin, and I've also tried the coop. And they both died on me. Yeah, and I've sworn that off for a little while. I'm sure I'll do it again at some point. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean you just never know when that bad luck is going to strike, unfortunately. But so with that bird, did you use kind of a similar style imprinting it? Is the like, how did you do that different from how you did? Obviously you're going to do is different from what you did with the red tail. Right. But I mean, like what was the process?
I bought the McDermott book.
Yeah,
the recipe.
Followed the recipe. Yeah.
I mean, hands off to him if it worked for him. But I had the worst face grabbing, screaming bird there ever was.
Yeah.
She was a hunter, like you said before. She made up for she literally was impressive, mm-hmm. and made up for it. But yeah, if she missed a few times, you're going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. So when did you? I'm assuming when you mentioned the castage, I mean, did you fly them together?
Yeah.
And how was that?
Actually, we did. We the first time that we realized that it was possible was we were both had the birds on our fist. We were at a local industrial park that shut down, and they have some old holding ponds there, and they're old ponds. They have a rubber base in them. We happened to pop over the top, and we saw ducks floating in it, and we knew that they were going to fly out on the backside. Mm-hmm. So we kindly devised a plan of how we were going to get these ducks, and it was basically going to take two birds, mm-hmm. in our mind.
Yeah.
So he entered one side with the side we thought we would push them from, and I slipped to the lower side, and sure enough, he tossed Angel. She went after the ducks. They busted up over my head, and away Nala went. Mm-hmm. They flew side by side. Neither of those ducks they caught of those, but that's the day we realized that it was possible. And his bird was a little bit bigger than mine, and she would catch, and then she would honor it. She wouldn't come in on it until we would walk in on it, and we could get food cut up fast enough and throw it to the side. So we did that for a while, and I actually never really had a problem with it. And we started car hawking that way. He was out of the driver's side, I was out of the passenger side, and
yeah,
a lot of times we would catch doubles.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, it was working.
Well, I know for a fact that's something that I've never heard of anybody trying to fly two coops together, even imprint or not. But have you done any passage coops or?
Never have done a passage.
Yeah.
No.
Just never bothered.
Nope. And I've hiked them all. I was telling Jarrett one day, I would like to know what it's like not to hike one and see the difference, because I put them all out to tame hike for, I think the longest I've ever put one out is 27 days. And they build up great muscle and they learn to hunt when you start seeing them chase a lot. And unfortunately, the one I have was catching moles. So, but, yeah. So once you start seeing them do that stuff, you pull them on in. I would like to see what it would be like just not to hike one, to see the difference, because I've never experienced that.
Yeah, and I know. Yeah, I know Jared's told me many times that there's a few things that going back he knows that he would probably do different and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it always seems like whenever you're getting into these new things that you haven't done before, that there's just never going to be enough time.
Right.
And sure enough, a lot of times there's not. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it seems like, I don't know, like especially if you find that niche of things that you really, really like and you just kind of want to stick with it for a while. I know sometimes the other stuff becomes less important in your mind, but you still think that, well, I hope that there's going to be time. It turns into, it goes from, I know there's going to be time to fly these different birds that I want to fly later or whatever, to that transitions to I hope that there's time.
Yes.
And I've definitely become more of a falcon guy, and it's kind of funny, talking about these imprint red tail experiences and stuff. I just had an experience the last couple of days, this small open area where I've been drone training the prairie falcon that I've got right now. The last couple of days I've had a passage red tail come in and try and rob him 2 days in a row. We're not going to be going back there again. Right. We're going to find us a different spot. Yep. But that passage red tail freaked me out some, because that was my first experience interacting with, a quote unquote wild bird that displayed almost imprinty, like it must have been so hungry that it just didn't care. Yep. But I'll show you the video after we get done recording and everything. But anyway, it was crazy how quick and out of nowhere that bird came down to try and rob my prairie. And I shoot it off, and you know how the ones that are truly wild and stuff, they get spooked really easy. They fly off. You never see them. You may see them again driving months from now or whatever here and there. But like, as far as that immediate moment in time, they take off. They don't want to have nothing to do with you. This bird, I shoot off, and it landed 10 feet away from us in the grass and just stood there and just kept staring at my prairie's dinner. And I was sitting there like, I really hope you leave. Yeah. I really want you to leave, and this is making me nervous, obviously.
You got really lucky.
Yeah, really lucky. And because I saw it out of the corner of my eye last second, the first time we encountered it, and it almost landed. It wasn't going for my bird. It was just trying to rob it. Right. And so I was grateful for that. But what was weird was what came next. So the bird was on the ground watching us and everything, and finally it made a short move up to this tree that was right next to us, and stayed on one of the lowest branches of the tree, and just kept staring at us and everything. So my prairie finished his dinner, got him back on the glove, and I'm walking to the car. That red tail started following us, and we didn't have any food at that point. but that red tail was making moves around this big tree, watching us go back to the car and stuff. I'm loading the prairie in the hatchback in the back of my car and stuff. That red tail came over and landed on top of my car as I was loading my bird into the back of the car and everything. I get the bird, I get the prairie on his block in the back of the car. That red tail, after he flew and landed on top of it, I felt the wind of that bird coming and flying over the tailgate, with it up and everything, and just made a short little move back up into the tree and just sat there and watched me finish loading.
So he had already associated you.
It's crazy. Yeah. And so, I just as a little experiment because I couldn't help myself. I had 2 starlings on me. I had the one on the drone and the one that I used to feed my prairie. So I walked back over to the tree, and I've got this other starling in my hand, after I shut the doors to my car and everything naturally. But so I walk over, and this bird's just staring at me, just watching. Hold that starling up, and it just starts craning its neck down and everything. And I'm like, if I stayed here long enough, I bet you I could almost get that bird to come to my glove and take this starling. But of course, I didn't have the patience for that. I just wanted to see if it would even come close to me. And I got right underneath it, and it made a short little move up to another branch above it, but it didn't completely spook off. So I'm like, if you want this, here you go. I'll go ahead and just give you dinner on me, today or whatever. And tossed it down a couple times. The second time I tossed it down, it was probably no more than 3 feet away from me. And that thing just came right down out of the tree, picked up the starling, and flew off with it.
Wow.
And I was just like, man, everybody was just like, are you sure someone didn't pull that bird? It acted almost imprinting, but I just think it was so hungry.
Yeah.
And so I went back there again today, and I had another buddy with me, and I was like, well, I'm glad that you decided to come along and stuff, because I kind of want you to keep an eye out for that red tail. Sure enough, he was right back again, and he wasn't near as gutsy this time around. Swooped over, but didn't make the full commitment to try and rob and stuff today, and didn't do that committed pursuit, like a couple days ago. But yeah, it's crazy, and you never know.
No, you
just
don't.
Never know. So, but yeah. So, is there anything else? The Coopers. What else have you flown? I mean, aside from the Coops and the
I had a Gauss there one year, and didn't really do much with him. I got focused on my red tail and kind of put all my time into it. So, yeah, I really went with the red tail, the imprint red tail that year. I had them both, and I focused all my time on it. Yeah. But other than that, my passion is the accipiters. It's their flight. They just, they can take such a various amount of size of game. We were flying females on sparrows all the way up to crows on a daily basis. And you could fly one for 30 minutes and, you take whatever head of game. It wasn't a big chore. You didn't have to go out to the field. You could do it anywhere. Yeah. So, yeah, it kind of has my attention is the accipiters. But, yeah, then this past year, or the past couple of years, I got to experience the squirrel hawking with the Tennessee bunch, and they're a great bunch of people. And Jeff Fincher, the first year I got to hunt with him, I actually got to watch Maple, his dog, but he had then catch more squirrels than any bird at that meet. So, of course, I'm going to go get a decker. Yeah. And, I got into squirrel hunting really hard this past year and did great. Love it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than letting the beagle do all the work, I'm sure. Yeah, the tables have turned, but I incorporate a dog with everything I do because you kill so much more. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still, and Jeff brought this up too, and I've experienced this a couple times, going along with people squirrel hawking and stuff, but at least you're not wading through briars and all this thick brush, for like an hour, to maybe kick up 1 or 2 rabbits. At least you're walking around these woods, and I can see where it could be more work, obviously, and trying to shake the trees and doing all the pursuit work and everything involved. But yeah, at least you're not unable
to move your hips
Right.
for like 3 days after some of these brutal, like, thick briar and brush, cottontail hunts and stuff. So, no, that's cool, man. Like I said, I actually, I was the only person I think that put in tickets to at the raffle for the Decker.
Oh, you're kidding me. Was that you?
Yeah, it was me. Yeah. I was just like, well, I'll just see how this goes.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where I was just like, I knew going into it that, well, I probably need another dog right now. Like I need a hemorrhoid or something like that. But I was, just gonna, see what was gonna happen with it and stuff. And I was the only one that put the 3 tickets in there.
Well,
I
was going to wait and see if anybody put anything in, and I had a certain amount I was willing to put in, but when I just saw the 3 in there, I knew that we were going to show Amanda more respect with her dogs and not let it bring nothing,
Yeah.
So
no, I understand. No, but yeah, no, that's cool. I really want to make. I told Jeff I really wanted to make either this year or sometime soon. We really wanted to make that squirrel meet. Scott Carter has been trying to get me come down to go to it the last couple of years and stuff too. And it just, for whatever reason, there's always something going on that weekend. I really want to try and make it down this year though.
It's a good meet. It's a good social and a very well organized hunting meet. It's a good one.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, good deal, man. Well, thanks so much for coming down. I mean, believe it or not, we're already at an hour.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. No, it's cool. Do you want to give a shout out or anything? Or I know we already kind of did a little shout out for the Kentucky Falconer club and everything. But is there anything else you want to share or anything?
Yeah. Don't you guys have a meet coming up here?
Soon? Yeah, the Indiana one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's August 17th.
August 17th. I'll be there.
You going to be there?
I will be there. Yeah, we're going to come and represent Kentucky. You all did good for us. Good showing. You all. It's what it's about. The support. Yep.
No, it's cool because that's the one thing I do like about our location is unfortunately you're a little bit further away and more like central Kentucky and everything, but it's nice having guys like Jared and stuff pretty close because I mean it's a bummer having to buy a non-resident Kentucky hunting license, but it's worth it though because he's got some great fields and it's cool kind of having those two different states, so where we're at, the accessibility for both and everything. So, no, it'd be cool. It'd be great to have you. And well, nothing else. I look forward to seeing you next weekend.
Yes, sir. I'll be here.
All right. Well, thanks for coming down, bud.
All right. Thank you, man.
All right. Appreciate it. And, of course, the Indiana Falconers Association summer picnic has already come and gone, but it was good catching up with a lot of the Kentucky crew that showed up there, including Clint, and also all my fellow Indiana Falconers, and you guys always are a good time, and thank you so much to our state club for putting on a great event every year that we can all come and enjoy each other's company and hang out and share stories and just enjoy it for a day. So thank you very, very much for putting on another great picnic this year. It was a lot of fun. And I also, of course, always want to thank our listeners for tuning in each week. And for those of you that have been kind enough to make the donations, thank you so much. All that money, like I said before, is going to go directly back into providing you more content and also, providing you with that option of getting our podcast from other platforms here in the near future. So thank you all again so much. Keep tuning in each week. We're always going to have cool new guests come on, and we hope you keep enjoying it. So thank you all again so much for the support, and we will see you very soon. Take care.